guys, so for quite a while you guys have been asking me to try out Milani's Infinite Liquid Eyeliner. So Milani is a drugstore brand. Actually, they make pretty good drugstore makeup, but for a long time I have been using MAC Liquid Lash Liner. So to explain, in case you guys aren't familiar with my videos, I have very oily eyelids, and people who have oily eyelids or people who have monolids have a really hard time keeping their eyeliner on without it smudging. So far, this has really been the only eyeliner I could ever find throughout college that actually stayed on my eyes, didn't smudge. If I swam, if I ran, or if it was really, really hot out, if it was over 100 degrees out, it would still stay. And so that's why I was a little bit hesitant to try the Milani one, because I don't have the best experiences with drugstore makeup. I found a few things I liked, but I found a lot of things that I didn't like from the drugstore. So I've never been a huge fan of drugstore makeup, but then I finally decided to try it out the other day, and I got the Milani Infinite Liquid Eyeliner, and I got the color Everlast. Everlast is the darkest color they have. It's pretty dark, it's pretty much a black, but it's not quite as black, first off, as the MAC Liquid Lash Liner. I noticed that. That was pretty much the first thing I noticed about them. Okay, so I know my hand's really scarred. You guys can see it up close. Like I said, I used to work with parrots, so you guys can see all the little scars up there from all the times I got the crud beaten out of me, but that's not the point. So here are the swatches. The far left one is MAC Liquid Lash. The two on the right are the Infinite Liquid Liner from Milani. So if you guys can tell, that one's just not quite as pigmented. Also, the brush isn't quite as thin. You can make it thin if you kind of manipulate the brush and flatten it first against the bottle, but the brush is definitely a little bit thicker, and it's just not quite as black. I try to make it as dark as possible on the right side just by picking up a lot of the product, and I can make it a lot more intense, as you can see, but it's still not quite as intense as MAC Liquid Lash, I think. But it's pretty close. It's not a difference that I'm sure you would notice if you're having it right side by side. It's not really showing up on camera, but in the Milani liner I can still see my skin even through the really dark line on the right, and with the MAC Liquid Lash I can't see my skin at all. But let me just try to compare them side by side, and I know that's weird to compare it side by side, but I feel like they're very comparable products. So first off, you guys can get the MAC Liquid Lash Liner really at any MAC store. A lot of Nordstrom stores have a MAC counter on the inside, or Macy's stores. And then the Milani Infinite Liquid Eyeliner, they have a store locator on their website, but I've seen this at CVS, Walgreens, Target, and I do think that they are sold somewhere overseas, but I'm not quite sure which stores those are. And the price-wise, this one is around $5 or $6 depending on where you get it from. So that's one of the first bonuses this one has, obviously, because it's drugstore makeup, so you can actually catch it on sale, and it is a little cheaper depending on where you buy it. But the MAC one never changes price. This one's $17.50, and it's for about half as much product. You get 2.5 milliliters in the MAC one, and you get 5 milliliters in the Milani one. So already the Milani one is more economical. So as far as pigment goes, this one is definitely a little bit of a deeper black. The Milani one can either be a black or it can come out as this black gray. It's really weird. Sometimes it's really, really black, sometimes it's black gray. But only when I really glob on the product can I make it a black. But even at its blackest, it's still not quite as black as the MAC Liquid Lash. As far as the brushes goes, the Milani one is quite thicker, and then the MAC one is a little bit thinner. I'll show you guys. The MAC one's also stiffer. Oh, and here are the brushes side by side. The one on the right is Milani, the one on the left is MAC. You can see the Milani one's a little bit thicker. So it kind of has pros and cons. I do like to wing my eyeliner, and that's kind of where I prefer the MAC Liquid Lash Liner, just because I always get a really sharp, clean point. And sometimes the Milani one doesn't pick up enough product, and it gives me this kind of grayish wing, and so I'll go over it and I'll keep trying to fix it, and I'll end up messing up my wing. And so, I wasn't quite as crazy about that. I feel like you have a little bit less control with the Milani one because the brush is a little bit softer and a little bit more pliable, and it's larger. But for some people, if you just line your eyes, and if you just line the length of your eye and you don't do the wing, then I think that this would be really great. But it is faster, the Milani one, because the brush is bigger, so I spend less time doing my makeup. As far as the product goes, I noticed that the MAC one is a lot thicker than the Milani one. The Milani one is definitely a little bit more liquid, so when I apply it on my eyes, I don't notice that it gets caught on my lashes as much, because the MAC one always gets caught on your lashes. It's really annoying. And you'll blink, and then it'll just get down here, and it's stuck right there because it's really strong. It stays really well. And as far as staying power, I think they have very similar staying powers, which is really good. That's really the biggest deal, I think, because the MAC one, the only reason why I really used it was because it was the only thing that really stayed on my eyes. But the Milani one definitely stays. Obviously, I couldn't simulate being out in summer weather, so I just wore it to the gym, and it didn't budge even after an hour and a half workout, so I thought that was really good. As far as cosmetic appeal, does it matter? Maybe yes, no, just black, sleek, MAC packaging. My only real gripe with the Milani one is because, obviously I don't expect drugstore makeup to have the same kind of packaging that high-end makeup does. You guys know where they heat seal the plastic cover to the little cardboard board where you get drugstore makeup from? If you guys can see right here, this line right here. They actually heat sealed a little bit of the plastic onto the eyeliner itself. And is it a big deal? No, not really. It's just a little bit sloppy. You know, if you buy a cup and it has a bunch of adhesive on the side, it's stuck on there, it's still a cup, it still works, but it is kind of, you know, annoying to pay for your product and to have it not be very clean. So as far as which one is better, from an economical standpoint, obviously the Milani one, twice as much product for less than a third of the cost, right? But because I am someone who's done their eyeliner for a long time, and I feel like the longer you do your eye makeup, the pickier you get. You know, because like when I first started doing my own eye makeup, I was like, God, why is that girl using 5 different eyeshadows in her look? Or why do you need so many eyeliners that you can just use one? And then you kind of appreciate the little, you know, subtle differences that all these extra steps take. So I think for if I was doing, you know, a really dramatic night look, then I would still prefer this. But I would be okay with using the Milani Infinite Liquid Eyeliner for the rest of my life. You know, if this was the only one else I ever had, or if I ever made a permanent switch over to this, I wouldn't regret it. I still think it's a really good eyeliner. I like using this now for every day because it's a lot quicker, like I said. And, you know, since it isn't quite as intense black, I feel like it's a little bit softer looking too. But I do prefer a really sharp, clean wing, and that's kind of where this one fell short for me. But, I mean, you can still get a clean wing out of it. It was just that, like I said, sometimes it would just be this light gray wing, and I'd have to keep fixing it and fixing it and fixing it, and you just end up messing up after a while. And so I guess that'd be the only downfall of this. But, you know, I think if you made the switch over, I don't think that you would really miss the MAC one, because the MAC one gets so tacky, it's gross. After, you know, maybe 12, 15 uses, this one's so hard to use. It just gets so thick and just sticks to your lashes and gets everywhere. So I do think that this one's really good, the Milani one. I do highly recommend it, and hopefully you guys will be able to find it in your local drugstore. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye.